Nathan, thank you for taking time with me and with us. And thank you more importantly for the work that you do, both on behalf of a lot of people that you and we care about, but also just as a model for the world of somebody who's fighting for human dignity. So why don't we start there? Can you tell us how you're continuing the fight for freedom and for the rule of law in Hong Kong at a time that is so dark and ugly? How are you keeping the faith, recognizing that so many people have already been driven into exile or spent time in jail?
Thank you so much for the question, Senator, and your continued support to the Hong Kong movement. In 2014, I led the civil disobedience movement, umbrella movement, and the government prosecuted me with a charge of inciting unauthorized assembly. At first, I was given community service at a first court, but eventually the government kept pursuing, keep reviewing my charge until at a court of appeal, they overturned that and put me in jail for 8 months. And then I served a couple months of it, and I successfully appealed that. But at the end of the day, it really showed how the government wanted to weaponize the legal system to prosecute democratic campaigners and then put them in jail, where if you're in jail, well, there's very few things that you can do because it's a place that you can never seek help from the external world.
Your exemplary courage through all this has been an encouragement to many of us, even as we've grieved with you during your suffering. What can democracies do in the coming year to support people like you that are facing the growing authoritarian threat that we see from the CCP?
I think democracies have to stick together. We have to find ways to hold these human rights perpetrators accountable. What I found is difficult and is troubling is that we have welcomed them for the past few decades into our international system, but we have not been able to come up with mechanisms to hold them accountable when things go wrong. And I think this must change. We have to develop mechanisms. And if we look at the economic mass of democracies coming together, we're more than half of the global economy, and we've got a lot of NGO sectors and also a lot of knowledge in how we can come up with mechanism that can stop these human rights perpetrators on the one hand, reaping all the economic benefits in this globalized system, but also continuing the agenda of dismantling democracy, undermining our free values, and keep locking people in jail or even in concentration camps. So, Senator, when this summer of democracy ends, we've got a year long of actions. What do you think that we can do that are the most powerful tools to hold these perpetrators accountable and also support human rights defenders in Asia?
Well, I mean, obviously there need to be real tools that are hard as well. But I do believe the pen and the word and truth telling are one of the most fundamental things that we need to continue to hold to in this time. Freedom is never free. It's never easy. It's never the default. Freedom is something that has to be secured and then protected because the wilderness grows back, because we live in a broken world. So freedom depends on Nathan laws of the world. It depends on men and women who stand up and tell the truth. And it's clear that the Chinese Communist Party is shameless. They peddle lies, and they just hope the rest of the world will be too lazy, too short-term focused, and too squeamish to tell the truth. And so we can't let that happen. So I do genuinely believe that the single strongest tool we have is telling the truth over and over again, relentlessly in the face of their lies. And I think the US needs to lead a coalition of freedom-loving nations that believe in trade and in commerce of goods, but especially of ideas, that believe in the open navigation of the seaways, that believe in the rule of law, that believe in transparent contracts, that believe in human rights. We need a coalition of nations that believe fundamentally in the kind of human dignity that you've been fighting for.
Well, thank you so much, Senator. These are really powerful suggestions, and I on behalf of a lot of Hong Kong people, thank you so much for your introduction of the legislation and everything that you have been doing for freedom and for human rights defenders around the world.
We need to continually tell folks in Hong Kong, in China, in the US, and in every other country across the world that the story of Hong Kong and the Chinese Communist Party is really a story of courage on one side and cowardice on the other. Thank you for all that you do. And please let us know how we can assist you. You've got a lot of people who are praying for you, who are empathizing with you and want to know what we can do to lift our hands and lift our voices to raise you and your courage high. Nathan, we're proud of you.
Thanks so much, Senator.
Thank you.